here again. Let's go ahead and get into some crazy TikTok conspiracy roulette things. Let's see what we get today.
A few weeks ago, Nikita gets on his own platform and says, in less than 90 days, iMessage, phone calls, and Gmail will be so flooded with spam and automation that they will no longer be usable, and we will have no way to stop it. Now, this isn't some random schmuck posting conspiracy theories on Reddit about how Chipotle gives you diarrhea on purpose. No, this is a man who gets professionally destroyed by this shit every single day, and he's basically telling the rest of us to lube up because it's coming for everyone. 2 weeks later, he purges 1.7 million bot accounts off X, and the next day they just respawn. See, bots used to be simple. Now they have like a PhD in natural language processing and a Bitcoin wallet. And so someone asked him why it's about to get worse, and his answer was the one word no one wants to hear: OpenClaw. Now, if you're not familiar with OpenClaw, firstly, I envy you. It's currently the highest software project in GitHub history. It has more stars than React. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, who has almost certainly never tried OpenClaw or even knows what it does, just called it the most important open source project in the history of humanity. What OpenClaw does is it lets any moron with a laptop build an AI agent that can send emails and texts and browse the web and make phone calls and impersonate you. Some guy had his OpenClaw negotiate car prices with dealers over iMessage while he was at brunch. Nikita's point is basically what happens when every scammer in Nigeria and every crypto bro in Miami and every horny catfisher in Wyoming gets one of these. See, because before, you needed to actually know shit to be a spammer. You needed to know how to operate servers and write scripts and read code. Now, you just need a laptop and the moral compass of a pharma CEO. And the problem with spam is not just that it's a nuisance. The Chinese government, surprise, surprise, they figure this out before anyone. The Chinese government floods X search results with porn every time there's some political unrest. So when there's protests in China, the search results for Chinese keywords suddenly become nothing but tits and ass. It's no longer censorship or blocking the information. Now you drown the information out with content that is 10 times more engaging. Some guy in Beijing opens up X to look up protest footage and instead finds himself jerking off for 45 minutes. The CCP is looking through his webcam like, nice, we got him. You can't overthrow the government while you're jerking off. It's the great cum wall of China. Basically, we all live behind that wall now. And the reply spam on X, I mean, it used to be like hot girls in bikinis saying, check out my profile. Now it's AI generated hot girls with AI generated bikinis going, check out my AI generated profile, which links to an AI generated crypto scam. We used to get scammed by real people, damn it. The worst part about modern AI content is that every single piece of AI generated content was specifically engineered at the neural network level to be more engaging than anything a human being can ever write. There's a process called RLHF where they train these models by showing humans two responses and asking them which one do you prefer, and then they just reinforce whichever one is more compelling. Every AI model has been mathematically optimized to hold your attention better than any human written piece of content ever could. Google traffic to actual publishers dropped 38% last year in the US alone. The economic model of the internet is collapsing. We had a deal. We paid humans to write genuine things, and in exchange they got ad revenue. That deal is now dead, because why would an ad network pay a human when a bot generates more clicks? The algorithm doesn't care. The ad networks don't care. Nobody in the chain between creation and monetization has any incentive whatsoever to care if it's real. You can see this playing out everywhere. Of YouTube's 100 fastest growing channels last year, nearly 10 were fully AI generated. Slop was the Merriam-Webster word of the year for 2025. We went from selfie to slop in about 10 years. That's basically the arc of the internet in a single sentence. And I mean, look, the internet was always full of spam. Let's not pretend it wasn't. But at least the spam used to be stupid. You could see it coming from a mile away. The grammar was shit. You had like 3 different different fonts in a single sentence. Nobody fell for that shit. Almost nobody. And now the spam is smarter than you. It writes better than you. The spam went out and got a college degree, and you're still on your parents' phone plan. And Nikita. Poor Nikita. I mean, he's still in there fighting. He added a dislike button to replies last week. That's basically like the forefront of spam fighting today. A freaking dislike button. And so you're probably wondering, okay, so what happens next? What's the play? But this isn't that kind of video. There's no solution to this. This isn't a problem we just fix. This is just what the internet is now. And it's only going to get weirder from here. Your inbox is going to be so full of AI generated emails that are so personalized and so well written that the only way to know if something is real is if you already know the person who sent it. If some stranger emails you a perfectly crafted pitch, it's fake. If you get a LinkedIn message that seems weirdly relevant to like your exact career situation, fake. You get a DM from a beautiful woman who seems genuinely interested in your personality, brother, come on. The old internet wasn't perfect, but at least smart people could recognize the spam from a mile away. In the new internet, you won't be able to tell anymore because the thing that's trying to fool you was built from the ground up to be better at fooling you than you are at not being fooled. It's not a fair fight. It's not even close.
Best not to use AI in these videos at all. Like, and if there's an AI video, I try to skip past it and things like that because I just want authenticity. There's just so much fake out there. So much.
That was thin, y'all, because we got another story from someone who claims to have met someone who may not have been human at all. This story comes from someone named Bridget. That's a pseudonym, but she said she's a scientist who's written over 300 papers. And despite this, she still had her fair share of woo-woo stuff happen, but nothing ever like this. So this took place at the Atlanta airport on February 11th, 2026, so very recently, and she was flying through Atlanta to go to Las Vegas because she was going to see the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere. And she said she's not from Atlanta, but she has been to that airport many times. She's flown over 1.5 million miles and knows that airport like the back of her hand because it just seems like she's always flying through Atlanta. She's coming up the escalator on her way to Concourse B. She had to go to gate B18, and she gets off the escalator and she looks to her right and she sees what she described as a gorgeous light-skinned African-American woman with coiled gray hair on top of her head. She was very tall, she was very elegant, but she was walking very, very slowly. And this woman really seems to be struggling to walk. And Bridget says that she also struggles with a tick-borne illness. So she knows what it's like to get tired walking. And so she approaches this woman and she says, "Can I help you get somewhere?" And this woman looks at her and says, "Oh, honey, I must look as bad as I feel." Bridget says, "Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that." She said this woman was gorgeous. She looked maybe European, but she doesn't recall an accent. And they were right outside of B10 and she was going to B18. So she still had a little bit of time. And she's like, "Well, I'll just walk with you. I'll help you. Do you want to take my elbow?" And the woman just taps her on the inside of the arm and she says, "No, honey, I'm fine." It was a Wednesday at about 6:30 p.m. The airport was typically packed with business travel, but she noticed that nobody was touching them as they walked by. And Bridget says that she's been in a wheelchair because of her illness before, and she thought that that was strange because people just tend to push when they get in a hurry. But everybody was kind of making way, and they were walking so slow they were almost shuffling. But after about 10 minutes, the woman looks at her and says, "You know what, honey, I think I could use an orange juice." Coming up to a Starbucks anyway, so Bridget guides her to a seat and says, "You sit here, I'll go get you an orange juice from the coffee shop and I'll be right back." And she said she could still see the woman from where she was standing in the coffee shop after she entered, and she says, "Can I get an orange juice?" And they say, "We only have orange mango." And she goes, "I'm not sure if she's going to like that. Let me bring it to her and then I'll be right back." Barista kind of gives her a look and she says, "I'm just bringing it to that gorgeous woman sitting right there." And the barista says, "What woman?" And she turns and she looks and she can't see the woman anymore, but she's like, she must just be behind that column. It was no more than 4 long strides from the entrance of the coffee shop to where this woman was sitting. So she goes back over there, doesn't see the woman, and she's looking around this pedestrian-filled concourse and cannot see her anywhere. And she said, "This woman was very tall. I'm very tall." She was also stood out like a sore thumb because of how she was dressed. So I don't know where she could have gone in that time because I wasn't gone for more than 2 minutes, and she also walked very, very slowly. So she's confused. She looks at the woman who's sitting at the next chair over and she says, "Excuse me, did you see where this woman that was sitting here just went?" The woman looks at her strangely and says, "What woman?" and she said she's dressed like a movie star. She was just sitting right here, and the woman said, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying any attention. So then she looks at the man who's sitting on the other side of this chair, and she says, excuse me, did you see where the woman who was just sitting here got up to go? And he looks at her very strangely, and he says, there was nobody sitting there. She said at this point she genuinely believed that both of those people were just in their own worlds and not paying attention, and she did not believe that this woman just disappeared into thin air. So she says, okay, never mind, thank you. And she goes back to the coffee shop and she brings it back, and the barista's like, what happened? Didn't she like it? She said when he asked that question, she just had this pit in her stomach, and she felt so bad that she lost this woman who she felt really needed her help. She was so bothered and concerned about this that she actually ended up going up to the gate agent. And she said that she knows that gate agents at airports are keenly aware of everyone around them for multiple reasons. And the gate agent's this tall man, and she says, excuse me, did you see this woman who was sitting right here? She's a very striking woman. She's dressed like a movie star. We walked up to the gate together, and we were walking so slowly that we were basically shuffling. And the gate agent just says, no, I'm sorry, but I'll help you keep an eye out for her. And she says, yeah, I just feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like I just was talking to a ghost. She really did not mean anything by it. She was just kind of thinking out loud, and it was the first analogy that she could come up with. But the gate agent peers over his glasses, and he says, you know, baby, that would be a real possibility for you. He said it was so odd. So she just looked at him and said, what? And he said, you know that, right? She said it just struck her as so strange, but there was nothing else she could do. The woman was gone, so eventually she just waited out her flight and eventually got in line to board. And that same gate agent ended up being the gate agent who scanned her ticket. She tells him thank you and says, you know, by the way, I never found that glamorous woman I was telling you about earlier. And he looks at her and he has no sense of recognition in his eyes, and he says, what woman? Who are you talking about? He says, you know, I came up to you and I was asking you to help me keep an eye out for that woman that I was looking for. And he says, I didn't help you, but thank you for flying X, Y, and Z airline. Have a safe flight. Because the entire experience was so strange, she still can't stop thinking about it. She has never had anything like that happen previously, but she can't help but feeling like she was part of another dimension for a moment, and maybe that gate agent was also part of that dimension, however brief. This experience was followed by another odd physical experience a few weeks later, but did not go into detail. However, she said that she feels like her aware
iMessage, phone calls, and Gmail will be so flooded with spam and automation that
that was y'all.
Is Iran not going along with the mainstream story? A story that is set up to control the population. What is in Tehran, Iran, that they want destroyed and erased forever? Let's go find it. A post on Truth Social from Donald J. Trump states that everybody should immediately evacuate Tehran. And so, that night, they all listened. A mass evacuation took place. Evacuating an old world city, in my opinion. So again, let's go find exactly what was evacuated. The Golistan Palace. A palace from the old world with architecture that shreds the mainstream narrative story hour in a second. A structure that does not belong in our timeline. The photos inside this building are incredible to look at. If my town gave me one of these, I think I would lose my mind. With the griffins right on the front entrance at the bottom, as well as in the art. A palace without a doubt. We have talked about wars many times. We have seen the destruction countless times. Planned attacks on locations that are filled with old world buildings, places that don't belong in the horse and wagon era, especially when we are told that this palace, a UNESCO site, was constructed in the dirt road era, the no toilet era of the 1520s. They're wiping with their hands, yet constructing this palace while riding around on a donkey, with major reconstruction plans taking place in 1797, with records of the actual construction process, of course, being vague or symbolic. Little manpower and tools, none of it was documented. While at the exact same time, they're supposedly documenting their political reforms and royal life extensively. If you were in the business of documenting things, you would mention how this place was constructed, at least a little bit. Yet, nothing is documented. And time again, we see this. We've seen how many horses it would take to construct something like this. We already know that the horses need a lot of water, and this would all have to be planned out. This would be part of the story, and we know that the manpower would be massive. Yet there is never any documentation on this. So let's go deeper. There's a subterranean storage area beneath the Salem Hall, a central part of the overall complex. So now we all know that it's bigger than we can see. And we're all given the excuse that it's for storage. Of course. And we believed that for years. A palace from the old world where we know that they connect to others underground. And we know when we find one, there are always so many more right next to it. So let's go find another one. Just a half a mile away, we have located the National Museum of Iran, where we also have this massive box of land. We've seen this before. We've even seen this in San Diego, California. We've seen that this is clearly covering something of importance. The National Museum of Iran. It is home to artifacts that would show that something else happened here. Something much different than the story that we're all told. Again, hands removed, and we know exactly why. Is Iran not going along with the mainstream story? A story that is set up to control the population. What is in Tehran, Iran? That they want to.
What if I told you we may also have been lied to about why there are tides? And I'm sure you're probably thinking there's no possible reason that there'd ever be justification to lie about why the tidal currents occur. But after watching this video, I can guarantee it will start making sense. Now, according to the official academia, including McGraw-Hill, the textbooks we all studied from at school, the way the tide works, McGraw-Hill, by the way, is owned by Pergamon Press, which is called Satan's Throne in a biblical translation, and it's owned by Robert Maxwell, which is Ghislaine Maxwell's father, but we'll save that for another video. According to the official story, tides are caused by the moon's gravitational pull. Now, despite the moon having many phases, the tides are entirely consistent. Every day, there are tides coming in and out. Even if the moon is not out, if it's a full moon, or if it's a sliver toenail moon, it doesn't affect, the tides are tiding no matter what. But if the moon's gravitational field is what causes tides, then how come in the Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, and other massive lakes, like the Great Lakes, there are no tides? You'd think such a massive ocean would have tides, significant, similar to the big oceans. But that's not the case. Why? What if I told you we may also have been lied to?
Sir, please be careful. That's a $10,000 custom shop. I know. It's set up very sensitive. Low action. That's Eddie! Handle speed just fine.
Eddie Van Halen walked into a Guitar Center in Hollywood on a Saturday afternoon, just browsing. A crowd had gathered around the premium guitar section, where a session guitarist was demonstrating an expensive custom shop Stratocaster. The guitarist, running through impressive licks, noticed Eddie looking at the guitar with interest and said loudly, "This guitar is a $10,000 custom shop instrument. It's too advanced for casual players. You need professional hands to really understand what it can do." Eddie nodded politely and asked, "Can I try it when you're done?" The session guitarist looked Eddie up and down, just a regular guy in jeans and a t-shirt, and replied condescendingly, "Sure, but be careful. This isn't a beginner guitar. Don't break it trying to play stuff you saw on YouTube." Eddie smiled and said, "I'll be gentle." What happened in the next 3 minutes became the most legendary guitar store moment in Hollywood history. It was a Saturday afternoon in June 2008, and Eddie Van Halen was doing something he did regularly, despite being famous, browsing guitar stores. He loved looking at new gear, testing equipment, and staying current with what was available. Usually he went incognito to avoid crowds, but today he'd taken a chance on Guitar Center Hollywood, one of the busiest music stores in Los Angeles. He was wearing jeans, a plain black t-shirt, and a baseball cap. No sunglasses today. He didn't think he needed them. To most people, he just looked like another middle-aged guy shopping for guitars. Eddie was browsing the custom shop section, looking at high-end Fenders and Gibsons, when he noticed a crowd gathering. A man in his 30s, expensive clothes, carefully styled hair, the look of someone who'd spent money on his image, was demonstrating guitars for potential customers. The demonstrator was good, technically proficient, playing blues licks and rock runs that showed off the guitar's capabilities. He was working for the store that day, Eddie realized, a hired gun to help sell expensive instruments. The session guitarist, his name tag said Derek, was currently playing a beautiful Sunburst Stratocaster, a custom shop model with premium pickups and hardware. He was running through scales, playing some jazz fusion licks, showing what the guitar could do. "This is the Custom Shop 63 Ritchie," Derek announced to the small crowd. "Hand-wound pickups, nitro, cellulose finish, vintage spec everything. This is a $10,000 instrument. When you play something this nice, you can feel the difference immediately. It responds to professional touch in ways that cheaper guitars simply can't."
Sir, please be careful. That's a $10,000 custom shop. I know. Set up very sensitive. Low action. That's Eddie! Handle speed just fine.
Eddie Van Halen walked into a guitar.
If we could explain all these anomalies in the photos, there's a big reason why nobody can get to the moon. A reason why human beings can't leave Earth at all, at least not yet. The reason is real and scientifically proven as fact. Radiation.
We see the ascent stage suddenly pop up without any exhaust plume whatsoever, as though it were jerked up by a cable.
Our research suggests that images of the Apollo landings are not a true and accurate record. In our view, the Apollo pictures were faked. Many of the images are replete with inconsistencies and anomalies.
There are problems with almost every aspect of the visual records, equipment, and technology used to supposedly put a man on the moon. But there's one even bigger problem we haven't dealt with yet. There's no way the astronauts could have even escaped Earth's orbit, much less gone to the moon and back. Radiation. In 1958, scientist James Van Allen discovered two enormous belts of high-energy radiation surrounding the planet. The Van Allen radiation belts are a pair of toroidal belts, donut-shaped belts of high-energy particles. Any object leaving the Earth's orbit to visit the moon or beyond has to pass through them, and they extend out about 37,000 miles from Earth. These two radiation belts have different compositions. The inner belt above the equator contains energetic particles that are charged up to 100 million electron volts. The outer belt is electron plasma from the sun's solar wind, and it has energies in the 10 million electron volt range. When it was first detected, the The strength of the radiation was so powerful that scientists thought they had recorded a Soviet nuclear test. These high-energy particles can penetrate spacecraft, damage instruments, and are lethal to astronauts. But we have photos and even film of the Earth taken from much farther out. How could this be faked? Well, the astronauts never left low Earth orbit. From there, the Earth fills the entire window of the craft.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera. So your view now is probably better than ours is.
So to get this film of the Earth, they blocked out sections of the window. This film is an outtake. The astronauts didn't realize they were still rolling. They said the camera was pressed up against the window to get a good shot of the Earth. But that's not true. You can see someone pass in front of the window, then quickly jump out of the way. And here you see the dim work light that was used so they could operate the camera. We're not supposed to see this. We're also not supposed to see this. Someone adjusting the insert that controls the shape of the Earth. Now remember, they're in low Earth orbit, so the Earth is actually really bright and fills the whole window. How do we know? Because when they open up the iris of the lens, we can see it. Holy sh! Yeah, we can't pass through the Van Allen belts yet. Don't take my word for it. Take NASA's.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges.
If we could explain all these anomalies in the photos.
This is how I created images for.
I believe that billionaires are going to utilize the desolate areas of Greenland to test AI tech surveillance cities being branded as Freedom City. The PayPal Mafia is attempting to buy Greenland, and I'm going to prove it. But here first, we got to talk about Honduras in 2011. In 2011, there was this thing called a REID created in Honduras. A REID was going to allow for corporate town-like developments to be created in specific areas that would not fall under Honduran law and would allow for economic growth and development. By 2013, they said, can't do this. This is wrong. But 4 judges on that panel that said it was wrong were immediately dismissed the next month, replaced by Juan Orlando Hernandez's administration, and then it was passed. The ZEED in 2017 would get used to form what's called Prospera LLC with Eric Breimer. Eric Breimer would use this state as their model for what they were looking to build. Problem. By 2021, Juan Orlando Hernandez was arrested, and the next person in charge said, the ZEED can't do this. This is wrong. But Prospera LLC had already been building for 4 years, so they sue Honduras for $10.8 billion. Here's Eric Breimer's tweet regarding that exact thing. How does this have to do with Greenland? Well, the thing about it is they want this Prospera LLC to create areas where there's 1% business tax, no FDA regulation, not even crime regulation. Somebody was killed last year in Prospera LLC, and they just simply sent the money to their family and never even investigated it. They said, here you go, shut up, here's some money. Who's backing Prospera LLC? Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen through a company named Pronomos by the grandson of Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman was the one who helped Reagan create Reaganomics. Interesting. Patrick Friedman is his name. Also had this idea of seasteading. Seasteading was this idea of creating a city out in the ocean in the middle of nowhere so you didn't have to abide by any governance. You listened to the whales and the dolphins. That was your law. You could create whatever law, do whatever you wanted, and it became a crypto wet dream for laundering. Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen. Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal. Now we look at Greenland. Greenland is some place that Elon Musk wants to go for drilling. He wants it for data centers. And we already know that Musk is super involved with the government through Doge. He tweeted that Trump was a pedophile and then had dinner with him just last month. And now Grok is getting utilized in the Department of Homeland Security. The guy is basically part of the cabinet. Also, a founder of PayPal. The AI cryptos are right now. The guy who would be heavily involved in crypto regulation around something like an AI-backed state surveillance city, currently being branded as a freedom city, is also one of the founders of PayPal and being advised by Mark Andreessen, who's one of the funders of Pronomos Capital. Seems like a conflict of interest, but who even cares about that at this point? So we have 3 PayPal Mafia members involved in this formation of what's going to be an AI tech surveillance city, branded as a freedom city. And by the way, Trump said we're going to have 11 freedom cities in America.
These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream.
Let's get to the point. The point is this guy named Ron Lauder and a guy named Ken. We're going to start with Ron. Ron suggested that we go take Greenland back in 2019. It wasn't until 2025 that it started to gain some momentum. And so Ron, back in May, decided to go to Delaware's corporation site and create a Greenland LLC. He used that Greenland LLC to recently, in November of this year, invest in a Greenland water company, the Greenland Water Bank. Interestingly enough, in October, something happened that kind of set in motion the fact that we're definitely going to be able to get Greenland. 2 things happened since then. One, Ron Lauder invested into Greenland, and secondarily, Juan Orlando Hernandez, the guy arrested in narco-terrorism just a few years ago, is pardoned. Why was he pardoned? Speculating here, but could have anything to do with him helping create the framework for the Prospera LLC experiment? I don't know. But let's get back to this guy named Ken. Ron Lauder said, I will be your bridge of communication between America and, not Greenland, Denmark. Denmark owns Greenland. So, how could we create an official line of communication between America and Greenland? Oh, I don't know. Let's assign Ken Howry the position